Hi, today we're going to learn how to use VPN to stay secure and private online. Wow, this is a tough job. Just kidding. When you use NordVPN, all it takes is just a single click. See for yourself. Click, and you're browsing securely on public Wi-Fi. Click, your ISP can't see what you do online. Click, and you're in a different country. Well, virtually. Any device you have there, NordVPN has you covered. Everything else is just details. But if you care to know more, NordVPN has more than 5,000 servers all over the world. It protects your sensitive data with advanced encryption, shields you from malware and phishing sites, and keeps no logs of your online activity.
Click link in the description and get 68% discount for your first order. Removing the doors and hardware. Cover the walls and floor around the cabinets with drop cloths and tape. You don't have to remove the cabinets completely if they are already on the walls, but you do need to take some steps to protect the area. Put a drop cloth or sheet down on the floors and countertops. Protect the walls close to the cabinets by applying painter's tape. Work on the cabinets outside or in a dedicated work area if they aren't attached to the wall. Put them down on a drop cloth so you don't get stain and sawdust everywhere. Unscrew the cabinet doors from the hinges with a screwdriver. Find the two hinges on each door and locate the screws. Hinge screws are usually on the front or inside of each door. Take a screwdriver and remove the screws on each hinge by turning them counterclockwise. Repeat this to take off all the doors. Hold the doors steady as you're unscrewing them so they don't fall off. Keep the screws in a safe place so you can reattach the doors easily when you're done. You can use a power drill to remove the screws by running it in reverse. This is faster and might be a good choice if you have a lot of cabinets to work on. Remove all the hinges and handles from the cabinets. First, unscrew all of the hinges and pull them away from the surface. Then, take off the knobs or handles on the cabinet doors by removing the screws on the front or back of the door. Keep all of the hardware and screws in a safe place, like a bag or jar. That way you won't lose any. Pop out the shelves inside the cabinets and set them aside. In most cabinets, the shelves just rest on top of plugs. Lift each shelf up and slide it out of the cabinet. Then, pull out the plugs along the side of the cabinet interior. If you're staining the shelves, then keep them nearby. If not, put them in a safe place where you won't step on them. Just like with the hardware, make sure you don't lose any of the plugs. If the shelves are screwed in, then just remove those screws to get the cabinets out. Sanding and conditioning the cabinets. Wipe down the cabinets with soap and water if they aren't painted. If the cabinets are raw or unstained, wipe the surfaces down with a wet rag and mild detergent. Then, wipe them again with a wet rag to remove any soap residue from the surface. Let the cabinets dry before moving on. You don't have to wash off cabinets if they are already stained or painted because you will be removing the previous finish. Sand the previous stain off with 100 to 120 grit sandpaper. Old finish, stain, or paint needs to be removed before you can add a fresh coat of stain. Use a coarse grit sandpaper to sand along the grain of the wood using smooth back and forth motions. Sand all of the surfaces where you plan to apply stain. If the cabinets are raw and unfinished, do a light sanding with fine grit sandpaper before staining. Use an electric sander to get this done faster. Make sure you keep the sander moving so you don't damage the wood surface. Chemical paint stripper is a good option if you have a lot of cabinets and don't want to spend a lot of time sanding. Be sure to work in a well-ventilated area and follow all the safety instructions. Wipe the cabinets down with a rag or tack cloth to remove sawdust. Run a damp rag or tack cloth across all of the surfaces. Be sure to get rid of all the dust residue before moving on. If dust is building up on the floor, vacuum that up before you start staining. Sand once more with fine grit sandpaper so the stain grips properly. Do one final sanding with 150 to 200 grit sandpaper to get the wood surface ready for the stain. Sand all the parts that you'll be finishing the same way as you did before. Work the sandpaper into all the detailing and ridges to ensure an even finish. Wipe the cabinets with a tack cloth to get rid of sanding dust. Give the cabinets a good wiping with a tack cloth or damp rag so they are clean and ready for the stain. Any leftover sawdust could get stuck under the fresh stain and ruin the new finish. Repair any discolored spots with a touch-up pen, if necessary. Older wood may have faded or discolored spots that could cause the fresh stain to look uneven. You can fix these spots easily with a touch-up pen. Simply use the pen to color in any discolored areas so they match the base color of the wood. You can get a touch-up pen from any hardware store. Try to get one that matches the base color of the wood. Apply wood conditioner to prep the surface and ensure even coverage. Wood conditioner helps the stain adhere and gives you a better finish. Dip a brush into a can of conditioner and brush it onto the wood. Spread a thin layer on all of the surfaces that you will be staining. Wait for the conditioner to dry, then brush the wood lightly with #0 steel wool to rough up the surface a little. Follow the product's instructions for drying time. Most wood conditioner dries in as little as 15 minutes. Conditioning is especially important if you're staining a porous wood like pine. The conditioner closes up the wood pores and keeps the stain on the surface. Applying the stain, choose a color and type of wood stain for your cabinets. Decide if you want to use an oil-based stain or a water-based stain. When it comes to color, you have many choices, ranging from dark to light and different tints. Look at samples to decide which matches the room best. If you aren't sure which stain you want, try testing a few out. Put a small amount on a hidden spot of the cabinet and see how it looks when it dries. Oil-based stains are slower to apply and susceptible to mold, but usually give a more even finish and tend to last longer. Water-based stains dry faster, but they tend to show imperfections more clearly and could fade sooner. Open the can of stain and stir it thoroughly to get rid of clumps. Sediments tend to settle at the bottom of wood stains, so get all of that up before painting with it. Use a wooden paint stirrer and scrape along the bottom of the can. Then stir thoroughly until the stain is even and there are no more clumps in it. To test the stain, lift the paint stirrer up and hold it over the can. If there aren't any clumps, then you're ready to start staining. Brush the stain into the detailed parts of the cabinet first. Most cabinet doors have some detailing on the front, so focus here first. Dip a brush or clean rag into the stain and rub it into these detailed sections. Work along the grain of the wood to apply a thin, even layer of stain on all of the detailed areas. Make sure that the brush or rag you use is clean. Any dirt or dust will get trapped in the stain and ruin the finish. You may need to use a small brush for tight spaces. Cover the flat cabinet surfaces with an even coating of stain. After covering all the detailed areas, move on to the rest of the cabinet. Brush the stain onto all the flat surfaces with smooth, even strokes along with the grain of the wood. Cover the outside and inside of the cabinets, along with the doors and shelves. If the cabinets are still attached to the walls, then you probably won't be able to reach the backs and sides. That's fine. Just focus on the visible areas. Remember to apply a thin coat of stain. If some spots are darker than the others, spread the stain a bit more in that area. Wipe off any excess stain with a clean rag. If the stain coating is thicker in some spots, then you will have dark patches on your cabinets. After the first coat, look over the cabinets and find any spots that are darker than the others. Take a clean rag and wipe away the excess stain in these spots to even out the finish. Let the first coat of stain dry completely and assess the color. Stain always gets darker once it dries. Check the product's instructions and let the stain dry for the recommended amount of time. Then, check the color to see if it's as dark as you want it to be. Drying time varies by product, but it's usually somewhere between 8 and 24 hours. Always follow the instructions on the stain. In the meantime, you can clean up and vacuum the leftover sawdust. Leave the tape and coverings on the wall, just in case you want another coat. Sand the wood and apply a second coat of stain for a darker color. If you decide you want the stain to be darker, lightly sand the cabinets with a fine grit sandpaper to rough up the surface. Wipe them down afterward with a tack cloth to remove the sanding dust. Then, apply a second coat using the same process as before. Let the cabinets to dry for the same amount of time. You can even apply a third coat if you want a darker tone. Remember to sand and wipe the cabinets in between coats. Reattach the doors and shelves once the cabinets are totally dry. Screw the handles and hinges back onto the doors and reattach them to the cabinets. Then, put the shelf plugs back in and slide the shelves into position to finish the project.